Oh my god. So, apologies. My voice will be slightly diminished from what you saw in the earlier video for reasons that should be fairly obvious to anyone watching. But yeah, it's John back with Where the Owl Sleeps. And what can you say, man? Saints 2, Arsenal 1. I'm going to try to be as objective as I can in the circumstances, but it was crazy because I think, you know, obviously St Mary's was alive and at it tonight. Kind of wish it'd be more like that all the time in its own way. I mean, in terms of like, as soon as the game started off, you could sort of see the blueprint for both teams in that opening 2-3 minutes. It was, for Arsenal, it was just, you know, they moved the ball at a pace that we're genuinely just not used to seeing teams do, like at the level we play at. And we really had to kind of like weather that storm in its own way. Odegaard, they were trying to get on the ball as much as possible in that opening 5-10 minutes. And I think Casper Yander had a superb game tonight. He sort of did a good job of moving over just to limit the amount of time he could get, like that Odegaard could get on the ball. You know, I think the tail of it for us then was just like I said in the previous video, it was trying to get up the pitch using Fellows and Cienza as that kind of outlet and counter attack. Probably a common theme most of that first half really was that when we did get into the final third, we were actually quite wasteful generally, and I think there was, yeah, you know, I think there were many occasions where maybe it got the better of us. That being said, Arsenal off the ball was superb. You know, there's a reason why defensively they've been as good as they have been this year. Gabriel is a menace, gets away like on Van Dijk levels of the amount of stuff he gets away with, but you can't argue his anticipation, superb. Physicality, the longer the game went on, I started to think it's one thing saying a player's physical, but it's actually how much they're allowed to get away with. And that's a really interesting point in terms of that. I think he gets a lot more leeway than most defenders do. And there were times where I think officiating-wise, I've realised why I don't want us to go back up. Just because it's shambolic in that sense, but at least from a consistency standpoint. I thought, you know, the opening goal, Ross Stewart, I think what we'd seen really is in that first half, if there was, you know, I think Arsenal in places today were very, you know, levels-wise were very, very good and very strong. We had to work hard for what we did. I did think though, like there were times where we get in behind, like through that channel of like White and Mascara. That really did look like the avenue for us to go through, and there was a couple of times where, to be honest, Mosquera looked a little bit naive in the way that he'd let us through. But again, we were fairly wasteful in those moments. But when that one moment did come in the first half, though, now Ross Stewart, superb bit of centre forward play, to be honest. I think Ben White's had a mare, he's misjudged it aerially. I'd have to watch it back. But to be honest, Stewart's done everything right, man. Touched, buried it in the corner. Incredible stuff. And I'd say from that point, we actually kind of grew into the game and came into the ascendancy a bit. It was good to see. Second half, I was worried we were just going to come out and try and defend that 1-0 lead for the entire 45, which would have been just scandalous, really. Unfortunately, we didn't. We were brave. We took it to them. You know, Cienza's hit the bar. We could have arguably got that second goal. When they do equalise, you kind of get that sinking feeling because you sort of think, this is kind of what you expect. Like, you don't take that chance. Maybe you could argue we weren't necessarily brave enough at that point in the game to go and get a second, and then you get punished. I think we did a really good job all night of kind of restricting Arsenal to like very, very minimal clear-cut chances. Daniel Perez made 1 or 2 great saves when he had to. I just thought, yeah, we did a very good job of kind of keeping the game compact so that it didn't break into like sort of individual battles. I feel if it had, I think we would have got torn apart. So we had to do a very good job of working as a cohesive unit. You know, really limit the space that Arsenal would have in those areas. I thought a lot of their forward players were poor tonight, if I'm honest. God, I'm just trying to rally my way through all of it. It's just so much happened, you know. Like I mean, obviously, like Shay Charles coming on getting the winner. Can I just say though, like he came on for Cameron Bragg, youngster. Coming like I must say tonight, Yander and Bragg were superb in the middle, unbelievable. And I think overall, you know, on the whole, we really actually deserved to go on and win the game. I'm quite surprised to say that, but it's I mean, obviously, I think something else that needs to be said, really, because I think even in like WhatsApp groups with other people, I've already had kind of like non-Saints and non-Arsenal fans that didn't watch the game more or less turn around and go, "Oh, so were Arsenal really bad then?" And I think obviously the media narrative and social media particularly, it will always go back to that kind of looking at it through a lens of what did Arsenal do wrong. Truthfully, tonight, there was so much that Saints did right, you know, and that really needs to be said. And I think I'm going to try and let recency bias wear off on this one, but that to me might be my favourite occasion ever at St Mary's. And the reason I say that, like, I was at the West Brom playoff semi-final, 3-1, brilliant. I was, you know, I've seen many performances about the Premier League, and like even on the road to coming back to the Premier League before that. Truthfully though, I feel like with tonight, it's worth putting into context that, bear in mind, we're not even 6 months off of the fact that Saints were nearly at like 4 wins in 50 league games, right? Less than 6 months ago. We've just gone 15 unbeaten tonight and knocked the league leaders of the Premier League out of the FA Cup to get to Wembley. You cannot understate how much it just felt like it mattered so much. It just felt like it just meant so much. It mattered more. Like the players, you could see a hunger and a desire that we haven't seen in years. And you know what, man? Like, reality says, you know, we could go to the semi-final. We could get tucked in pretty nice. But even if we did, it was so good as a Saints fan tonight to see that it actually mattered. You know, like that there was something to get behind. There was something that, you know, we didn't look like we were just going to cave and fold like we have in many years of recent, you know. So there's a lot to take from that. Massive big up to Tonda and the boys for that performance tonight. That was incredible. Subscribe, Buddy Owl Sleeps, all that good stuff. Massive love. I am going to go and try and get myself onto a train and somehow get back to London, but what a night.